Hello and welcome back to ParanormalNL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, JV-Noseworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. For tonight's Psychic Medium Special on UPRN segment number 25, I've got two psychic medium guests from the Pacific Northwest and Ohio, USA tonight, waiting backstage, who I'll bring on shortly. So grab your looking glass and your favorite beverage and get comfy. ParanormalNL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. It's a boots on the ground BOG team doing local historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. If you'd like to be a guest on my show or have a historical or heritage building you'd like investigated in Newfoundland, contact paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com and follow the PNL Podcast and BOG team on their link tree. Now let's get on with the show. I'm going to pull up on stage. I've got Holly Jordan here from the Pacific Northwest. And I've got Dave. Now, he says Wells here, but he also goes by Adomus, right? Adomus?
Uh-huh. David Adomus.
I'm going to let you start first, Dave. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? And then we'll go over to Holly.
Okay, well, I'm a psychic medium, and I'm a paranormal investigator from Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been doing this for probably 50 years now, and I really like what I do.
You want to explain the Adomus versus Wells?
Well, okay. David Adomus is my nom de plume. It's my I guess you could say maybe that's my stage name, but it's like we picked it because David Adomus, like Nostradamus.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Now, Holly, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm in Washington State, USA, and I am a psychic medium. And I just met Dave recently and interviewed him on my podcast, Holly's Pandorium. And it's really fun for me as a heritage psychic. I mean, I'm from a family of psychics like Dave is, and it's fun to talk to people that live the psychic medium life, because we're not everywhere. You know, there's a handful of people that do what we do, and it's a real gift and it's a blessing. And it's wonderful to be able to share that gift. So I'm glad that we got to be on here today. It's awesome. So thanks for having us here.
Yeah, I should say to Holly, welcome back, because you were on for the UPRN folks who are new to the ParanormalNL podcast show. In season 2, episode 56, I had Holly Jordan on before with Holly's Pandorium. So who wants to talk a little bit about the different modalities that you do? You want to start? Dave? We'll go back and forth.
Well, sure. Like I said, I do past, present, and future readings. I'm also a medium, but I like to do, I'm a bricklayer by day, but I'm a psychic medium by night. So I like to do a lot of investigations. We try to go somewhere, me and the wife, every other weekend during the summer.
Dave, and, I have to ask, how did you get from bricklaying to what you're doing?
Okay, well, I've always been like this, okay? My mother was a witch, okay? And my father was an engineer. And growing up, it was always table talk to talk about the psychics, the ESP, the astral projection, the UFOs, the Bigfoot. That was how we sat and talked about it. It was my father was a very smart man, and he put this instilled this curiosity with all my sisters and myself.
Nice. So it's in the family. So you also run the Haunted Darkness and Paranormal group.
Yeah, I run that Haunted Darkness and Paranormal, but I also have free and paid psychic readings from Dave and friends. But I'm the administrator in a couple of the biggest groups on Facebook. So, I'm always out there is what I'm trying to say.
You want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you offer folks?
Well, it just depends on the person. Okay. As Holly and I were talking about last week, just seems like, you get so much information off a person. It really, it all blends together for me. It doesn't matter. Again, I always say when I touch someone, it's like a computer. It seems like I get so much information.
So is that you have to touch people, or do you prefer to do it? Do you have a preference, remote versus?
Well, I prefer if I can get a touch with people. I prefer that, but I can read photos. I can read voices. If you were to call in, I could give you a reading just off of your voice. But I don't know. Like I say, to me, it all blends together. It's hard to say, just one thing. I'm this or that. I think that I'm a firm believer that everyone has psychic abilities, psychic gifts. It's like any other muscle in the human body. You just need to work it out to make it stronger.
What do you think, Holly? I've heard a lot of people say that everybody has the ability.
So I'm glad that you said that, Dave, because I believe that as well. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a family with someone who encouraged going with these gifts and these inclinations. Everybody knows little kids say things that are maybe a little outlandish. They heard something, or they have an imaginary friend or whatever. And most of the time as adults, we tend to discourage children from, no, you didn't see that. No, you didn't hear that. My favorite video recently is of a little boy on Facebook, and he's walking down his hallway, and he stops at his bathroom, and he turns and just waves, and his mom says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm saying goodnight to the man on the ceiling." And she stops and gets kind of freaked out. But the truth is, children are so open, and all kids have this. They're born open to energies and things that we take for granted as adults. We tend to,
from a medical standpoint, do you think it's because of the pineal gland is not calcified or hardened yet? Is that what you guys think?
But I do believe that if you use it, it stays malleable and it stays more flexible. There's a lot of evidence that says the pineal gland is the main core of it, but I also believe that it's on an energy level. I really think it has a lot to do with our souls, because the soul energy is constant. The pineal gland can be strong or weak or whatever, but your soul is always bright. We come from light and love, and that's where we stay. And depending on whether you're open to it or not, you've got abilities. And I track this back in a way to when people were much older, thousands of years ago, hunter-gatherers, people that are in the medical field like yourself, and people that are firefighters, people that are in the military, police officers. We have a natural instinct to protect ourselves. We have an awareness of danger.
True.
Okay. Everyone has that. And that's part of it. It's just an awareness of energy near us. Just like you could be doing the dishes and maybe you got the radio playing and you get this sensation that someone's behind you, but you didn't hear them. And sure enough, there's your spouse.
Right.
It's stuff that we pick up on. And I believe it's for self-preservation. It's to help us stay alive so we can be aware of our surroundings.
The fight or flight.
Yes, exactly. But it's more than that, because you're feeling it. Right?
Yeah. I tend to be more of a sensor, like a feeler type of person. Before I got into this, I guess paranormal stuff, I'm there's Scully and Mulder, right? So I'm kind of a mixture of both. I can say I want to believe I had the poster and all that, but I'm also the Scully. But I was more of a Scully, but now I'm kind of more leaning towards Mulder.
It's okay though, because honestly, I think most people have a healthy curiosity about it. They think it's all hokum maybe, but they're curious about maybe what if. And until you really have an experience.
Exactly. Yes. There you go. Yeah.
All right. Let me tell you a story. Okay. My grandparents, my great grandparents, they came from the Basque region between Spain and France in the mountains, right? Okay. My grandmother would tell us that my grandfather would go off hunting, okay? And my grandmother, my great grandmother, she would know what food to prepare because she would know what animal he had killed or trapped or whatever. He had hunted, and she knew this. And my grandma always said they had a psychic bond between the two of them.
That's
wow.
awesome.
Interesting. Dave? Now, you had a lot in your family while you were growing up. Do you guys think that, if you're around it more and it's more accepted in your families and it's kind of easier to embrace and everything? Because I know a lot of families, there are folks who are in the family, tend not to believe it until they do have an experience.
I absolutely believe that belief has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I know there's people that don't believe and then they're shown the proof, but usually you have to really have that belief in the beginning, in my opinion, to not only accept it but to revel in it. Like I say, if you want to be a good football player, you've got to get out there and run and do all this. Same thing with this. If you feel like you can do this, then the confidence just carries you through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
I love it when people are curious, and like David shared about with me before, he does these events annually, or is it like biannually? You do those fairs that you go to, Dave?
I do about 6 or 8 a year, and I've got one coming up next month. I was going to wait till later, but here in Cincinnati we have the Body, Mind, and Spirit, and they have them out there in Washington also.
Yes.
But the one we have here in Cincinnati is the largest. It's the biggest psychic festival in the world, and I'll be doing it this year. I do a seminar where I usually have standard room only, and I read everybody in the room. Last year I had 158 people in the room. I read everyone in there, and so these are my favorite things to do. I love festivals; they're the greatest thing ever.
That's
awesome. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So, are there any other events that you have coming up? Either one of y'all?
Yeah, I actually have a few coming up. I have these moon bazaars that I attend, and I do this for my podcast and for my husband's band because he plays music, but I'm expanding into some other ventures because most of my readings are done 1-to-1. And that's just because I started doing public readings during COVID. I've always done personal readings with friends and family, and, occasionally meeting someone at the grocery store and I just feel like I got to talk to him kind of situation. But I have never done a gallery situation like Dave has. But my experiences have been throughout my entire life. So my exposure has been, I read pictures. I was telling Dave, I've had people ship me things. Like I read a sock once and
interesting. Okay.
And, I pick up vibrations from, like Dave said, from voices. Someone can talk to me on the phone and I pick up stuff. It's just whatever, as long as someone agrees, because that's my number one thing is they have to want a reading. Otherwise I stay away. That's one of the things I learned growing up is how to turn it down or turn it off, because I don't want to read people without their permission. So for anyone listening to this, psychics that really love what they're able to do, they're not invading your space ever. They're not going to hear your deepest, darkest secret. They're not going to hear the thing you're most embarrassed about. They're going to hear things that your spirit guides want us to know to help you progress your life and live your best life. We're going to hear stuff that's useful to you and things that'll help you move forward. So we're not anybody to be afraid of. We're not like crazy scientists where we're going to pick apart your brain and judge you. That's not what we do. We're all about love, and we're all about helping people to figure things out if they have questions or just to give people closure. I'm sure Dave can attest to this. There's plenty of times when I encounter people and they're amazed that they might get to talk to their mom one more time, or they might get to talk to their child that passed away. That's a huge gift. That's a huge, huge blessing to me to be able to do that and let someone ask a question or let the loved one from beyond say, I am okay. I feel okay. I'm happy. And, I'm with other people that I love. And those things are precious moments in life we don't get all the time.
They are very important.
Yeah. And
do you have any readings or things that you want to share with us by not divulging the person or place or anything like that kind of stick out in your mind that you've done?
Well, just recently, I did a reading for a lady, and her husband had passed, and she said, I feel him there. I smell his cigar smoke. I I feel his presence. Well, I don't directly interact with any spirit. Okay. I learned a long time ago that I don't want to have that in me. So I go through my angels, my guides. Okay. But, and my angels were talking to this guy, and he just did not want to leave her alone. He wanted to be there with her all times and forever. And he kind of looked like, I'm guessing, the way he died. He was in his late 50s or 60s, and he was kind of crumpled, and he had the sagging eyes, and he looked tired. And my guides were talking to him, and we said, why don't you go on to the light, and you'll be, because you're turned to energy when you go on to see the creator. And my guide says, why don't you go do that? And then you can always come back and visit her. And I'd say 2 days later, she says, my house feels so much better. It's lighter. It's like, like somebody pulled a veil or opened a curtain. And then my guide says, he's back. And he was no longer this older, rumpled, tired man. He was this young, vibrant energy, because I'm guessing he was turned to energy by the creator. And it was just amazing to see the difference. And the way the person I did the reading for, the way her I guess, attitude changed. She was like, why is he doing this? How's he feeling? I miss him and blah, blah, blah. But now she's saying, oh, I feel so good. I know he's happy. And, she was raised up. And that, like we were talking earlier, Holly, about, I feel that we're here to give a little guidance, sometimes some insight, and definitely some closure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for that out there. And some people don't even know it, right? You can sense it. Like you said, sometimes you got to like approach somebody because you feel the need to tell them something, or your spirit guide is drawing you to them.
Yeah. So one of the stories I was just thinking of that was really, really interesting to me, because it was such a good love story. This younger lady had been engaged to be married, and in the same year she lost her dog that she'd had from childhood to a son, and her fiance died in a car crash. And she contacted me because she said she had felt that he kept sleeping next to her for the longest time, and then he disappeared. And she said, where did he go? And so I was able to connect with him, and he was so awesome, Jen. He was like, I knew she needed to move on. And he said, I didn't want to leave her. So I watch her and I check on her, but I'm keeping my distance because she's not moving forward. And the dog came, which was really cool. I love it when animals show up.
I love pet spirits. Yeah.
So I actually do seances every week, and I've had some of the jolliest times with spirits that come back, and spirits that have lingered sometimes for different reasons. Sometimes, like Dave and I talked, well, they get lost in a hospital, they die suddenly and just kind of lose track of where they're at. I had a couple of displaced ghosts that were best friends in life, two ladies. And one of them was terminally ill when she died, and the other one was out of town and died in a sudden accident. And so they took several years trying to find each other after they died. They hung out with their families and dealt with the letting go of them passing. And then, where's my best friend? And they finally found each other, and they hung out for the longest time just to kind of connect. And I mean, there's all kinds of stories like that. They're beautiful.
Nice.
I just love it.
Do you ever run across scary stories?
Oh, sure.
Well, hey, let me tell you the one story about, I live in a haunted house, an 1860 house here in Cincinnati. It was part of the Underground Railroad. We've got tunnels that go all the way out to the river from here. It's got 4 floors. My aunt used to live with us, but she passed on, and then she's still here. But back in December, like I was saying in the beginning of the podcast, we lost our 14-and-a-half-year-old American Bulldog, right?
Sorry.
And so I get this puppy last night late, like 11 o'clock at night. The lady got here with him. But right after, and all night long, we heard what Kitty used to run back and forth on the upstairs. We heard the back and forth on the upstairs. And it was like, I said, well, I guess that's Miss Kitty saying that she's happy that we're happy, you know?
Do you have your puppy there with you now in the room?
Yeah, but he's asleep, and I don't want to wake him up. I'll tell you what, he is an eating and pooping machine.
That's what puppies and babies do, right?
Hey, and I'm not bullcrapping. He's at least eaten 5 bowlfuls of high protein. We got him the high protein stuff. I don't know why. My vet said to make him poop more, but we got him the high protein dog food, and he's eaten 5 bowls of it, right? And he's pooped at least 7 times. I'm like,
Oh, no.
but we're real excited because we really wanted another dog because we had Miss Kitty for 14 and a half years, and she was one of the oldest American bulldogs ever. She almost got the record.
Wow. So tell me more about your haunted house. What else goes on in there?
Oh, well, let me think. All right. Well, when I first bought the house, it was on the market for $200,000. I offered them $100,000, and they took it. And I'm like, wow. So as soon as I signed the paperwork, the house is appraised at $215,000. So I made money, and I'm like, wow. So neighbors come up and they say, your house is haunted, And they say there's pictures in the Cincinnati Enquirer going all the way back to the 1930s of a man standing in your window. And I said, great. But the first time when I was here, I'm sleeping on the floor, not a scrap of furniture anywhere. Now it's filled to the rims, but I'm downstairs. There's nothing down there either. I'm walking around, and all of a sudden, a light bulb comes flying out of the air at me from who knows where, and it pops. So I said, hey, now look, if you guys are going to keep this up, I said, you're going to have to start paying rent.
That's right. You got to lay down the rules to them, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't had a problem at all from them at all.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Holly? You really got to lay down them rules for the ghosts, don't you?
So I have a good story about when my husband and I moved into this house. It's a little teeny house. It's over 50 years old. It's not as old as Dave's by a long shot, but we're right by a small lake and mountains in Washington. And our first night, now for me, this is one of the fun things that a psychic medium gets to do. And I know Dave will appreciate this story. So we moved into this house, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm listening for voices, and I'm waiting. And finally, I hear these 2 different distinct male voices, and one of them says, oh, thank God there's a dude here. And I started laughing, and I waited, and I kind of turned my head away, and then I waited for them to continue talking. And the other one says, if I see one more Hallmark movie, I'm going to start screaming. So in the neighborhood that we're in, it's 55 and older, and there's a lot of ladies that live by themselves. And these guys travel between the houses and watch TV. Just, died in the neighborhood, and they're just hanging out. Well, I couldn't stop laughing after the Hallmark comment, and they both turned and looked at me and said, can you see us? Can you hear us? And I went, yeah, I'm a medium. And they went, oh my God. So that night we get our bed set up. We're exhausted. We've just been moving, and I'm laying down, and all of a sudden I hear what sounds like from a coffee shop or a library where, people are, this whisper. And I look, and at the edge of my bedroom is this wall of ghosts. They are everywhere. And I had to get up and say, okay, guys, y'all, this is the rule. Girls got to sleep. You can come here and visit, but when I hit this door, you're out. You can't wake me up unless it's an actual physical emergency. I have a body. I got to rest. Thing that people don't realize is mediums don't get a day off. We're on 24/7 unless we set boundaries. We have to, because they don't sleep. They don't think about us needing rest. They're just so excited to have somebody to talk to.
I mean, I've done seances where the ghosts are like surprised that you can hear and communicate with them, and then it seems like they try to hitch a ride. But then you talked about the rules. You got to put the rules down. Like, no, you can't follow me home. You have to stay here. And,
Absolutely.
But have you had any hitchhikers come to you?
I always cleanse myself before I do any investigations, before I do any seances. But I always meditate before I do any readings. And I always carry black tourmaline in my left pocket. Sometimes if it's a bad place, I'll take some holy water with me. But mostly I practice shielding. I was talking about earlier with my wife about this. I'm a big fan of grounding, getting out in nature, letting nature give you strength and energy. And if you can't hug a tree, now, I'm a hippie, so hugging trees never been a problem for me. But another thing is I'm a big fan of meditation. I've been meditating since I was 6 years old. My mom died when I was 6. So
I'm
I've been,
sorry.
yeah, it made me who I am. I've had a lot of, people leave, but it was their time. But I'm a big fan of meditation. Just meditation, it'll give you focus, it'll give you clarity. And the third thing, and the most important thing that I tell anybody starting out being a psychic or even paranormal investigators is shielding. I imagine I have a force field around my entire body, like there's a brick wall between me and the world. It protects me from, I guess, spiritual problems. It protects me from physical problems, mental problems. And the more energy you put in this shield, this chainmail, the more powerful it is. My aunt used to call it the egg of white light. And you would imagine that there was an egg of white light that was protecting her against anything negative. And then when we go out, she would expand the egg of white light around the car. When we took a plane, she would expand the egg of white light around the plane, protecting everybody in there. I don't know how much that worked, but I'll tell you what, we never had any problems.
Yeah, I have an aunt and she always talks about bubbling up and using like rainbows and stuff like that. And I guess I try to use rainbows and think about things like that, you know. What do you do, Holly?
Actually, the egg of light is something that I even used in my hypnotherapy business just to help people to shield themselves with positive energy, to help dealing with negative thoughts. It's powerful. And it doesn't really matter to me what your spiritual ideology is. It's a positive intention. And once you set the positive intention, that's what it is. As you believe, that's how the world follows. So if you believe that you are protected, you are. Plain and simple. It's not anything fancy. It's not magic. It's real. And the fact that it works so well, I can testify on personal account. It works. It absolutely works. And you can't, like Dave said, there can be no exception. You got to do it every day. It's just something that you do. And especially before you do any work,
I've noticed that, if you don't do it every day, there's a difference.
absolutely. And even, like our friend Al Santoriga says, he blesses all of his equipment.
Oh, I love Al. I'm going to give a shout out to Al.
But he said to me something about that when I was starting my investigations that I was doing. And even if I do remote things for people, if I do remote readings for investigations, everything gets covered. Everything is protected. Every piece of equipment, every person, the whole place. I do all of it because there's negative energy everywhere, just like there's negative people everywhere. And you can imagine when they recycle and become a spirit without a body, they're not any nicer necessarily. And there are negative energies that we got to be mindful of. You don't want attachments.
And you don't have to be there also, right, Dave? You can do it remotely to kind of put a shield and a bubble up to the place
I
that's where you're going to do
I
a
personally
paranormal
believe in
investigation.
being there in person. I've seen people try and cleanse houses from a distance. And I guess some people really can, but to be honest with you, I think I like to have the personal touch on it. You know what I mean? Where you can physically feel it and see it, and like I say, it's like a veil being lifted when you because I've helped out a lot of spirits go to the other side, and so I don't know. That's one of the things that really it validates us and gives you a little bit of smile in your life.
Absolutely. But you were asking us about scary stories before, Jen, and I would
Yeah.
say there's always scary stories. There's always things that can be a bit unsettling, and I don't recommend that everybody try working in the paranormal unless you're prepared that there's might going to be things that you're not ready for. I don't jump like I used to when I was a kid. I've seen a lot of things. There was a time when I was very, very young and I was asleep in my bed and I kept having these nightmares and they were horrible and they scared the daylights out of me.
Oh.
Spirit guides took me out of my body and put me above my house and let me look down at my body sleeping. And all these spooky looking things were floating around me while I was sleeping.
No.
And they can't touch you, can't harm you, we'll make them go away. And I was like, okay. And so it was scary to come out of my body, first of all, for the first time that I remember. And yet it was so real to see something I thought was in my mind that I couldn't seem to get rid of that was actually outside me, affecting me.
Yeah, we set up a trail cam in our house because we thought, okay, we got some hitchhikers or something on the go here, right? Because there's some weird stuff going on. So, yeah, sure enough, on the trail cam, there was like Orb Central. It was like Grand Central Station. I was like, wow, my gosh.
Yeah.
We did a few things, but like you said earlier, if you don't do it every day, I noticed some weird things happen, right?
Yeah. It's just life. I mean, it doesn't stop. What people forget is that energy never dies. It never dies. So it just goes into one other form or another.
Right, transferred into a different type of energy.
Well, I believe Einstein said it best when he said, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only changed.
Right.
I like, yeah, that is 100% true. Yeah, I like to talk about, philosophy and physics because I think those two are kind of hand in hand, aren't they?
Yeah.
Science is just magic. It hasn't caught up to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe that.
All right. I got a scary story for you. It doesn't really have a whole lot to do with paranormal, but it has a lot to do with, I guess, horror. Okay. All right. When I was younger, my first wife and I, we were probably 18 years old. We took a trip and we were going to the Red River Gorge. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this place. It's in Kentucky. It's the Daniel Boone's National Forest. It's a huge expanse. And when I was a kid, everybody would go every weekend. It was a big thing to do it. Now nobody goes, I guess, because everybody's playing on their PlayStations or whatever. But so we've got a family. I've got 3 children at the time, and so we stop at a Cracker Barrel on the way up into the mountains.
I love Cracker Barrel.
So we go through there, and I got some beautiful kids. My daughter was a redhead. My wife was a redhead. My sons were dark complected. And so we get our food, but the whole time I'm getting this EBGB feelings. Like that feeling when somebody's like watching you, and your hairs on the back of your neck are sticking up, right?
Yeah.
So we eat our food and we go to pay, and the guy says, "Oh no, your food was paid by a gentleman." And we said, "What?"
Yeah.
Okay. So we ended up going on from there. We went on down the camping into the gorge, and we were, we like the primitive camp, so we're using a tent and we're swimming in the pond, or I guess it was a creek, and we're just having a great time. And so about 7 days later, we pack up and we're pretty dirty, and we've been camping, so we're on the way home. So we stop at the same Cracker Barrel on the way home, right? And so, I'm a little, but we eat and we go to pay, same thing. The guy said, somebody paid for your meal already. And I said, I want to see the manager, because at this point I'm getting a little, spooky. And the manager said, yeah, he was an older gentleman. He paid for your food. He said, you had a lovely family. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here, right? So here it is. I'm going to say 30 years later, we hear the story about this redheaded killer down the Red River Gorge. This guy's been killing redheaded women for 50 plus years, right?
Ew.
And so we heard this story. And I told my current wife, because my first wife passed away when she died when she was 27. But I was telling my current wife, I said, we really dodged that bullet.
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, that was his MO. He would pick people up. I'm guessing at the restaurants or whatever, or not pick people up. He would pick people out. And they said that he killed over 50 redheaded women.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Dang. Keepers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm and being a psychic, but see, when I was younger, I tried to ignore it, like we were talking earlier.
We've got a visitor behind you. Who's that?
Kitty cat.
Oh, that's one of my kitty cats. That's Oscar. He's a Maine Coon.
Hi, Oscar.
You should see my daddy Maine Coon. He's 22 pounds. He's giant. But much on the cats. My wife was one of these cats, but I'm so happy with my doggy. If I can get this doggy to wake up, though, you guys are gonna love her, love him. But going back to the psychic thing, though. But I always I've always been like this, I've always had feelings, and I've been doing this stuff since I was little. I mean, I've been doing professionally since I was probably 6 years old, and and at that time I was trying to live my life, have a family, and I kept getting them feelings, and so I'm telling everybody out there, when you listen to the little voice in your head, listen to that little poke in your side. That's your angels, your guides. They're trying to tell you something. Pay attention.
Okay. Yeah, that's some good advice for everybody. What do you think, Holly?
Absolutely. I think that everybody's got a still small voice, and it usually sounds like you. Sometimes you'll hear it in your left ear. That's one of the clues that it might be your spirit guides actually talking to you. And chances are, if you practice listening and practice meditation, which I highly recommend, and I totally agree with you, Dave, it helps. I have my pain levels actually go down. I've been in a couple car wrecks, and I actually have less of pain when I meditate every day.
It helps.
Huge
Yeah.
difference. If I skip a day, I can feel it. It just doesn't feel as good.
Yeah,
But
you got to get into your routine. So are there, you said you do, Holly, we were talking off air before we went on, that you do some other different things besides readings.
yeah. Well, I do the seances and I do investigations, but I also do hypnosis. And being a psychic, that has been incredibly helpful. I help people basically remotely. I don't have an office. I do everything on the phone, just like my readings or, things like that. And it's wonderful. I actually help people with whatever they want to change or whatever they need help with. I started during COVID because as a psychic, I could feel it. I mean, the energy was different, and I'm sure everybody can attest to that in one degree or another. There was so much anxiety, and people weren't sleeping. They were worried about how they were going to feed their families, missing work, and so much anxiety. It's like we feel that. If you're empathic at all, you can feel when there's pressure in the neighborhood. It comes out. You just feel it. And I think that's why we are the way we are, because we need a still small voice and a calm reassurance that things are going to be okay. We need that. We need that support. And I think that's why some of us, like me and Dave and lots of others, we have the boldness to be able to talk to strangers about their personal lives. And my husband laughs because I'll go into a store. Now imagine going grocery shopping and some stranger walks up to you and they dump their guts. It's word vomit. They just tell you every their life that you never would have wanted to ask about. And then they cry and you give them a word from spirit and they hug you and you guys go back to your shopping. That happens to me all the time. And I'm sure Dave encounters that too. I'm sure,
Do you guys find yourself drained a lot? Like, do you have to recharge your batteries?
I'm pretty fortunate. I don't have too much of a problem with that because it actually gives me energy. I get
like after you do a seance or something, do either one of you find that your energy is drained because they were using your energy?
I find when I do singles, when I do just single readings, it seems to drain me. But when I do crowds or I'm around a crowd, it really perks me up. It's like I it's not that I'm like an energy vampire, but it's more like I kind of share with the energy of all the crowd. I love it. I love crowds. I love going to concerts. I love all that. My wife hates being in all the people. I love it. It's just makes me feel better. It kind of gives me that little boost.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's true. There are some times when you do a reading, if I do one that's especially long and involved with one person, sometimes it gets a little draining, but it's worth it because you're doing something really special.
Now, I haven't heard either one of you talk about cards. Do you use cards also or any other items?
I use all tools. Matter of fact, I have 85 decks of Oracle and Tarot cards that I use.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. I actually use a crystal ball and I do use cards. But yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's just being able to read somebody is an incredible gift to be able to use. And I love it when people say, I've never had a reading. I've always wanted one. I get messages on my Facebook account. or someone said they talked to you and I haven't talked to a psychic in a long time or whatever. And my favorite thing is I tell everybody, don't tell me anything. Don't say anything. Don't offer me. If I ask you a question, give me a yes or no answer, because I know what they don't know me from Adam.
So now, what do you say to the naysayers out there who are going to say, oh, she looked or he looked this up on Facebook and yada, yada, yada. What do you say to the naysayers?
I don't worry about it, Jen, honestly, because the spirits tell me stuff that there's no way it could be found on the internet. And I've heard way too many times, Holly, you were spot on. You were spot on. You got that exactly right. Or, it might be. And see, when I do, like Dave does future readings and past readings, as do I. And so I pick up on stuff that happened a long time ago. I get stuff that's in the future. So what I do is I ask people to please save the reading and refer to it and then come back to me. And I want to hear an update on how things go. And there is nothing more jolly than hearing, yes, I got that job. And yes, I went and did this, or yes, I got that house, or yes, I got this relationship. I have this one story that I love, and it's a gentleman that I've been working with for years. And he came to me, a total skeptic, didn't believe in psychics, but just for the hell of it, his sister bugged him and said, talk to this lady. He had actually gone to jail for something that he didn't do. And he was so bitter and so angry, it just kind of corroded his soul. And so
it would, right? So
I talked to him about all that. And I talked to him about what happened with his business partner that caused all this and all these things. And then once he got through the crusty part, he was able to let go. He was able to move forward. And he finally found the love of his life. But it took 2 years. And it took, reading for him on several occasions when he was struggling and just finding the grain of goodness in whatever was going on in his life, because it was a tough thing to overcome. And I think that's one of the biggest parts of this that people forget about or don't think about is if you're stuck, if you're not sleeping, or if you're really stressed out, maybe you need to ask for help. Maybe you need to reach out and be vulnerable for 5 minutes and just let somebody fail with you and help you connect with resources that maybe you're not in touch with right now. And because we get wrapped up in our grief, we get stuck in our own heads. We think too much about our jobs and our personal lives and our health, especially. There's all kinds of things we get stuck on. And working with a psychic or a medium, that's our jam.
So what do you do when you see something that's going to be, I guess, ominous? Dave, do you ever have something like that happen?
Hey, first on the question about the cards or the tools, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. Like I said, I have runes, I have crystal ball, I have cards. Okay, but the truth of the matter is, in my opinion anyway, for me at least, they're just window dressing. I don't need the cards. I don't need the crystal ball to tell you what I see. Okay. Again, everything I say comes from my angels. Okay. And I always tell people I am just the messenger. But people feel, especially when I do these shows, because besides doing like the victory, the body, mind, and spirit, I do the victory of light. I do the, I do these Native American festivals up in Adams County at the Great Serpent Mound every year. I do the equinox and the equinox festivals, and people feel more at home. They feel more at ease if I pull some cards and I show them the card and I tell them, because I never use what the cards say on the booklets anyway. I always go by what my angels tell me, but it seems like people are more comfortable. They're more at ease when you say, they're like, oh, well, the reason that he knew this and that was not because of him. It was because of the cards, or it was because of the crystal ball, or, whatever. And I find it puts people, if you don't have any of that, it seems that people are a little unnerved by when you tell them things about themselves. But talking about that ominous thing, I would never, ever do a dark reading. That's what, like if somebody was going to get sick or they were going to die. I would never tell them that. I would say instead, go out and have some fun, enjoy yourself, live like there's no tomorrow. I would never want to put in my opinion, we see as psychics, we're not here to change the future. We're just here to help people, give them a little insight, a little guidance, a little closure. All right. But all right, let me tell you one real quick story. All right. I'm at the Victory of Lights Festival. It's been about probably 6 or 8 years ago. Okay.
Right.
And we got tables. If you've ever been to any kind of festival, you got tables and booths where people lined up all around, and they were putting lights up. I guess, the great big lights, that shine down. Even though it was the daytime, I don't know why they were putting lights up, but they were putting lights up. And this one young guy was putting the light up, and he was standing in front of my table. I looked at him. I said, "Step." He stepped. I said, "Step." He stepped. About that time, the light came down.
Oh my
He looked at
goodness.
me. I said, "You're welcome."
Oh,
So again, it's not that I'm trying to change anything, but you know what I mean? You get, what I'm saying? You get in that zone and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Step over here, And I've done this with my wife. Like, I'll say, don't drive. Get in the car. I'll drive you. Why? And then, her car will break down or be broken down, So I don't really think we're going to change anything, but I've always found that people like us psychics, that we've gone through trauma. Usually a trauma, in my opinion, is what opens us up. It makes us who we are. I mean, I'm a firm believer that everybody has gifts, but I believe that trauma, I always tell people, by helping you, it heals me. Because the most broken people are the ones that are helping the most people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was at a festival one time, and I had one person approach me, and they kept telling me a couple different times. They came up to me and said, "I see 3 pillars. What does 3 pillars mean to you?" And I was like saying to myself, Masonic, maybe? I don't know. Like, that's the only thing that I could figure, right?
There's a tarot card with 3 pillars. But again, see, like Holly was saying, I never would do a reading unless I'm invited. I never enter a person's energy unless they invite me. See, I read people different than most. Like a lot of people, they want to read you from the outside. I read you from the inside out. That's why I always ask permission. And it gives me a better outlook on things, Yeah. But I don't know. Somebody came out and was trying to read me like last year at the Victory of at the Body, Mind, Spirit. That Teresa Caputo was there, the Long Island medium. In case you have that TV show.
Yeah.
And I watched her TV shows several times. And she'll go out and on people on the street and say, this spirit wants you to talk to, and I thought, wow, if I was just enjoying myself on a night out with my wife and some lady came up, I think she was crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Like you were talking about consent and stuff like that earlier. You don't want to confuse the person or scare them or things like that either, right?
And the point of it is you want someone to be receptive. If people are interested, chances are they may not be very open to what they're hearing. They got to be ready. People are not going to listen to stuff when they're not really looking for it and they're not receptive to it. So to me, it's part of our life contracts. I do believe that everyone's life has a plan, even though people feel like they're randomly born, their parents accidentally had them. Their life is an accident. They weren't meant for anything. I feel really sad when people have that viewpoint, because I do believe everyone has a purpose. And in my belief system, people plan what they're going to do in their life, even though it may seem terrible to some or really hard, big hardships. But all of that helps us to grow and learn. We can't get it all done in one life. There's too much. There's too much experience. There's too many life lessons to learn. There's a lot we need to figure out. And
it's all interconnected.
Absolutely. And every time you have something really big happen in your life, you lose a loved one or you have a major health crisis. I mean, I had a heart attack 14 years ago and died for 8.5 minutes.
Wow.
My stuff changed and got a lot more powerful after that. I mean, I'd had it my whole life.
I've had a lot of people say that.
Yeah, I didn't use it as much as I do now. I use it a lot more now because I just feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. It just makes more sense for me to do that. And like in my case, when I read for someone, one of the things I do when I feel led to is I imagine the person standing in front of me and I literally go in a circle around them in my mind and kind of do an x-ray to see if there's anything that's going on with their bodies, because my spirit guides will tell me there's something there. And that's where I find health things, and not to scare people, but just to make them aware, if there's something going on in their bodies. I had a lady the other day that I was reading for, and she was in perimenopause. She had been having trouble sleeping, and all these things were happening. And so I talked to her about that. And I tell people, I'm not a doctor. Please check with your doctor. But this is what I'm picking up. This is what the spirit guides are sharing with me. And I'm like Dave in that sense too, that I listen to the spirit guides. I don't dive in by myself. I don't go anywhere alone. Ever.
Bring your spirit guides always.
Yeah.
I would never. I've seen. Have you ever seen a channeler? People let the spirits take over. Never. I would never do that. Never do that.
Never say use my energy. No,
well,
no.
Again, what is the one thing that a spirit wants?
Yeah.
Light.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't really want to give it up once you give it to them anyway. But
I find they're also attracted to candles and stuff like that, because I've asked them at different seances and stuff that we've done. How did you find us? The light, the candle was on. It's not usually on at this time or that time or
it's light and it's intent. That's when you go to. We were talking last time about when you go to a hospital or a cemetery. Your light, especially the light of psychics or mediums. I always say the gifted. It seems to shine. It draws. It's like a magnet. All these spirits and entities and
yeah. They know that you know.
There's a lady that I interviewed a year and a half ago that had just gone to a psychic training course and then went on vacation to Jerusalem, and she went by a haunted hotel. She couldn't wait to see it. It was on this places to go and see map type thing. And she just went by this place and ended up bringing home a spirit. She had forgotten to protect herself.
Oops. Yeah. Sometimes that happens, you're out, you're tired, you go home, you forget, right? I've talked to some people that said, oh, don't forget to protect not only your house and you and your loved ones and blah, 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 but your car and your property, right? Because
finance, all of it.
Yeah. I smudge myself every week. I smudge my home. But when I do an investigation, when I'm coming back in, I'll take my shoes and everything off outside. I have geodes outside, giant crystal geodes. Then I have some selenite inside. And if I feel that if anything carries on through, I try and leave it there. I try and leave it at the door. And I always say a prayer. No spirits, no negativity can enter my house and all this. And I don't know. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't really had anything attached to me, but we used to do a lot of investigations at Bobby Mackey's. Have you ever heard of that? The haunted nightclub.
Yeah. Didn't they just tear that down?
Yeah, they tore it down. But I've got some video that I'll have to send you that where they're tearing it down and this puff of smoke.
Oh wow!
Away. And everybody's like, "Oh, that was just dust." Look, I'm a general contractor for 47 years, okay, and I'm telling you what, that was something, But they're rebuilding it. I worked on the original building, so they're going to rebuild it, and he's going to come back, and I don't know, but it's just a fun place. But I've always heard of people who would take little things from Bobby Mackey's, right? And they would get access because of that. So I always say, never take anything from a haunted, venue.
Yeah, no, leave it there.
Family went to Auschwitz and brought some of the rocks from the railroad track home with them and couldn't figure why they were having so many problems. They had nightmare after nightmare. They had stuff slamming and crashing in their house. They finally mailed the rocks back, and we had a conversation about it. And apparently the people in Auschwitz that run the museum have said they get things in the mail all the time. The people that go out there
take it back. Here, take it. I don't want it.
And they think it is, and they get it home, and they get all kinds of nonsense going on. And I don't want this, and send it back.
Well, living in this haunted house, okay, and everybody's like, I told you, we have these tunnels that go all the way to the river. They were part of the Underground Railroad, and they're stoned up, but there's about this much knocked out of the top, or I can just stick my head in there. And everybody's like, why haven't you investigated that? I said, because I'm an empath, and I do not want to pull in all that emotion.
No, that would go right in your house, right? Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, my house is amazing. We're turning into a haunted bed and breakfast. We've been buying 2 pieces. See, my house is huge. It's got 15 rooms, okay? And we got 4 floors, okay? So we've closed off the upper. That's where my Aunt Alice lived before she passed. But we closed it off. But we're going to turn that into a haunted bed and breakfast. But like I say, we hear stuff here recently. The activity has been going off the charts. There'll be orbs all over the place. The lights will turn on and off in the bathroom. The sink will turn on and off, and we hear footsteps upstairs. There's no way nobody's getting up in there. I mean, I've got an inch plywood, screwed in with 4-inch screws, so there's nobody getting in and out of there. But I mean, it's been really ramping up. I've noticed here recently.
Wow.
So that's our dream, is to turn into a haunted bed and breakfast. We've been buying a lot of period pieces. Like we just bought a portrait from like 1860, and we're going to put it up on the wall. It's I guess, gentleman, but we're trying to get the theme going. I've got a first edition of Dracula that I'm going to put on the wall.
Oh, nice.
And
You've got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, well, we got a couple of hurricane lamps, and so we got a antique bed. So we've been trying to get it together so we can turn this into a haunted bed and breakfast. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds fun. So we're getting close to that time. Do you all want to give a shout out to your fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank everybody for listening and following with Jen's page and with our pages. We appreciate all of the energy and connection. We love to hear from all of you, and we really appreciate your time. And please, whatever platform you're on, if you can like or follow, all of that helps, and we need all that. So please do it. It doesn't cost anything, and it takes just a second. So please do that for us.
Thanks, Holly. Everybody follow Holly Jordan. Now, Dave, do you want to give a shout out to your fans?
Yeah, I'm Dave Wells, but on Facebook I go by Dave Adomus. You can follow me in my groups, free and paid psychic readings from Dave and Friends, or Haunted Darkness and Paranormal. But I'm also an administrator in one of the biggest groups, it's free readings and psychic connections. Look it up. It's 160,000 group. Come on there. And like I do lives during the week. Come and see me. And like I say, and if you're in Cincinnati, on April 12th to 13th, come and see me at the Body, Mind, and Spirit. It'll be great. Sunday I do my seminar. Come and see me. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And you're listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf Coast. Now, do you all want to give any other shout outs to anybody? We still got a few minutes, or I can go right into some music.
Well, I want to thank my wife for sticking with me. We've been together for 42 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy that you're having to deal with, but you know what, I really appreciate both of you and what you're doing for everybody. Thank you so much.
Well, we're grateful for being here, Jen. Thanks again for having us on here, because I think the more we can stay in touch with the public and help people to understand what it is we do and why we do it, I think it helps dispel myth and misconceptions about psychics. We're everyday people. We have jobs, we have families, we have health crises. We live just like you do. We just have this thing that we do that helps others, and we're blessed by it. It can be a curse at times. It can be heavy to carry at times, but it's absolutely worth it. It's a blessing to be able to help other people.
Well, thanks again for being on, guys. I'm going to leave now with some BOG team music rap. Here we go.